always hear the financial freedom stories that talk about the first deal, first real estate deal that we took down, the first business that we acquired, that thing that was the catalyst for success that allowed us to quit. And I've told plenty of those stories too, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's one piece missing, and you might be asking the same question that I was a lot of times when I was getting started. How did you get there? How did you get from the point where you were frustrated, working in your job, doing something you didn't love, to having the clarity, the confidence, and the courage to take down your first deal, whatever that may look like? That's what today is all about, and that's what we're gonna talk about. We're gonna dive into the 4 steps that I took and the lessons that I learned to take me from working a job that I didn't love to having the confidence to take action, pull the trigger on my first deal that then ultimately led to my financial freedom. My name is Patrick Menefee, and I'm here to help you level up your money, your mindset, and your mission in order to help you become the best possible version of yourself and live at the level that you're capable of. I think the world needs more people that are doing that, and that's what this channel is all about. That's what me and my companies are all about. Now, this video comes out every Monday, so click that little like button down below if this is helpful to you, and subscribe so you can stay tuned when the next ones come out. Now, as we get started and I tell you these 4 steps, first I want to set the stage a little bit and tell you where I was at that point in my life, because I think there's at least one and maybe a few points where you're going to resonate with this and you might feel the same. Now, for me personally, I had just left the Army and was in a brand new city working a brand new career. And I also traveled a lot for work. So my time, Monday through Thursday, I was gone. I had the weekends in my apartment, but didn't really know a lot of people. I was going out a lot. I was occasionally, instead of going out, I would stay home and play video games, hanging out with friends from the Army. And I was in this kind of rut. I wasn't working out as much because I had hurt myself in a car accident, and I just didn't have the greatest habits in the world. And I wasn't thrilled with what I was doing. So right before my 30th birthday, I kind of had that awakening that, what am I doing? What can I do differently? Where am I now compared to where I thought I was going to be? And that kind of woke me up, and that started me on my path. And that was where the first step came in. My first step was to get a lot more intentional around my habits and my discipline. And really that started with one book. It was a book called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. It's the little steps that you take, the little decisions that you make that separate you from success and failure. It's not one big thing. It's not going to the gym one time for 8 hours that gets you in shape. It's going to the gym every single day. And I took that to heart, and I started looking at how can I start getting more and more solid habits in place in my life that I can replace some of my old not so great habits. One of the biggest highlights in that book that I really took out of it was talked about the compounding power of just reading alone. I didn't read a ton at that point. I enjoyed reading, but I just didn't make time for it. And when he highlighted the fact that if you were to read 10 pages a day, every day for a year, that's 3,650 pages. If those are personal development, those are intentional educational books, that's a world of difference in education. And I took that to heart. And so I started focusing very heavily on reading. And then I started focusing on my health as well. I started eating a little bit better. I started going to the gym more. And then I started listening to podcasts. And then I would start listening to the podcast while I was on my bike going to the gym and while I was at the gym. And all of a sudden these habits started improving, my discipline started improving, and I started moving myself in the right direction. Ultimately, I started keeping a lot better track of how I spent my time. I started tracking a lot of those things, and I set goals for myself. And the first goal was around when I was gonna quit my job. Now at that time, my goal was to do that when I turned 40, which far surpassed that. But that was a very important thing for me, was to start setting goals and start making that progress, which then led to step 2. I had these lofty goals. I had these targets for leaving my job. I had these targets for starting a business, but I had no idea what business I wanted. I had no idea. I didn't even know that real estate was the path I was gonna go. I had to figure out where I wanted to try to make income. So with my newfound habits and with listening to a lot of podcasts and reading a lot of books, that's where I spent a lot of time focusing. I would go to the gym and I would listen to Entrepreneur Weekly. I remember listening to that podcast so many times. And I'd listen to other entrepreneur podcasts and hear what they did and hear how these guys got started and how they were successful, and try to figure out what is it that I like there that I can apply. I also started reading a lot of Forbes. I especially love looking at the Forbes 400 or Forbes 500 or whatever number they're on now, and trying to see what were the common themes, what were the things that the very successful people did. Eventually, I started finding that real estate was a part of that. At that point, my research ended, but my education really began. And I dove really deep in real estate. I started listening to Bigger Pockets podcast. I started reading real estate books. I started diving in very deep on real estate and learning as much as I could about that. I didn't need the wide noise of every single industry anymore. I just wanted to focus on real estate. So that was where I spent my time and energy. As I continued my real estate education, especially through Bigger Pockets, I eventually found the forums. And the forums is where I started connecting with a bunch of other people. And that was what led to step 3, where I realized the importance of and started acting on building out my community around me. And I did that by connecting with people in the forums. I brought a lot of them into a group, a lot of the local people into a GroupMe chat platform, and there were 100 plus people that I brought together in order to start having conversations, start sharing resources, start thinking about things the same way and sharing challenges and wins. That later turned into a meetup, which ironically enough, that meetup eventually turned into what is now my other business called Charlotte Entrepreneurs. I had already started to dig into the education. I knew what route I was going to go. I had set some goals, but the community helped really propel me forward. And that's what led to the fourth and final step. Through that community, I had dabbled a little bit and almost gotten into a deal with 2 other partners, but I'd never really truly taken action. Now, this is the most important step, and this is the one that you can do today, and you should do today, tomorrow, this week, in order to start moving you forward. I had up to this point not taken a ton of action. I had done a lot of education. I had surrounded myself with the right community. I had done more and more things, but I hadn't committed. And that is step 4. Step 4 is you have to truly commit to doing this thing, because having the community, having the discipline and the habits, and doing the research and educating yourself, all those things are well and good, but none of them matter until you put them in motion. I'll never forget, June 6, 2019, I was at an event for Verge, which was the real estate brokers that I bought my first primary residence through. And there was some one-off conversation that I had where this couple they were working professionals, both of them were, and just randomly shared with me how they had a couple of condos and just said it like it was nothing. And in that moment, after I'd been doing this for 8 months now, I had been going through this research, education, discipline, habits, community, all these things for the past 8 or so months. In that moment, I looked at them and I thought, you guys are doing this. Why not me? Why am I not taking action? And I committed in that moment. I said, if you can do it, I can do it. And I spent the rest of the evening with them, talked a little bit more. And when I walked away, that led to the very first step. And the very first step was getting my first deal under contract. From that moment, less than a month later, I had the first deal. And the first deal under contract was a 4 unit. A week later, I had another 6 unit under contract, and everything took off after that. Now, in the other video that I posted recently, it's from 0 to 20 doors. I share that story and I share about how I got started in those and how those deals happened. But the most important thing was I committed. And once I committed, I took action. All of the other stuff was laying the groundwork, building the foundation. Commitment was where everything changed. So let me ask you, which steps have you done and which step have you not done? Have you done steps 1 through 3 and you just haven't committed yet? You don't need to do all those other steps. In fact, you don't need to do them in order. There's no specific rhyme or reason. You might start with education and then start adding in the discipline after that. And all of those things just help boost your confidence in order to commit. But the bottom line is you've got to commit. So what is holding you back from committing? What can you do to move forward? If you need to add a little bit more research, you need to do a little bit more education. What is it in service of? How can you get to the point as quickly as possible that you are ready to commit? Because commitment, as I mentioned, is everything. As soon as you can commit, then you really start to take off. Click that thumbs up, give this a like, subscribe so you can follow the next videos. Go back and check out that video that I did on the 0 to 20 doors and how I did those first deals. It's really the next step. But then on top of that, that was just the beginning. That unlocked the mindset, that unlocked everything else that comes next. And so I'll continue to share with you what the mindset changes were that had to take place in order to make these things happen. It was a lot of mindset shift to get to the point of committing. Then a lot of mindset shifts along the way of doing those first deals and then pivoting away from them and getting to the point that I am today. So hope you'll follow me on this journey. We'll keep exploring all of these things in next week's and the following videos.